Okay, I think I'm in. I am trying something new, you guys. I added Twitter and Instagram this evening, along with Facebook. So welcome, Diane Devereaux, the Canning Diva. Bear with me while I'm mumbling my way through this software. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to get in. Oh, and it looks like the Twitter stream didn't work. Sorry, guys. Looks like I'll have to mess with that a little bit more. But it does appear that the Instagram stream is working. So that's exciting. All right. All right. Give me just a second here. Make sure I've got. All right. Okay. So welcome. We're doing another Facebook Live tonight, and I'm super excited because I have been getting a lot of questions. Many of you have been making a variety of my recipes, namely meals in a jar, which is perfect to have on hand when you need a quick, easy meal, especially for those of you in the north now that I'm in the south with the sunshine. It's cold and possibly snowy, and you know, going out to eat may not be so entertaining. It's very expensive. And so popping open a jar is just an awesome way to have a healthy meal. And so I've been getting a lot of questions. Some of you have been canning meals in a jar for years. Others are just getting started. So if you already know the answers to some of the questions I've been receiving, no worries. Just reinforcement. But if you're new to home canning or you're new to pressure canning and you're just diving into meals in a jar, hopefully this live segment, which will be recorded, so it will play even after the live. Hopefully this will help answer some of the questions that you have. And then of course, I encourage you to type your questions down into the comments, because in doing so, they'll populate live into the software and I can answer them for you in real time. So, all right, hopefully give me a thumbs up or comment your name and where you're from so I can start seeing things populating. I want to make sure this is working. Okay, so I want to start with the whole premise as to how I came about working on meals in a jar. For those of you who have been longtime owners of the Complete Guide to Pressure Canning, I published this with Callisto Media back in 2018. And what I did in the last chapter was I gave, meals in a jar recipes, and everyone was really excited, but then everyone was going, hey, I want more. So it was from that chapter years later that Meals in a Jar was born. A lot of you were reaching out to me, whether it was an email or a DM in social media, saying, I'm thankful for spaghetti sauces and sloppy joes and soups and stews, but I want so much more. I know it can go in a jar safely. So, hi, Dolores from North Dakota. Oh, thank you. I love that you love my recipes. And what is your favorite? Tell me. I want to know. I want to hear from all of you, even after it is, the live is over with and it's recorded. I want to hear what your favorites are. I have a lot of favorites. You'll see that when I respond to your comments, because I don't just can and create recipes, right? I actually eat them. I have flagged pages myself. So what I put together for you, I also eat, and so does my family. So, but the reason that I went around the world to find a variety of cuisines is because you're right. Some of these staples that we have, they're great. They're not boring, but we want to expand our pantries and we want to do something a little bit more than just the standard things, right? I also have a chapter in here for vegetarian recipes because I have been receiving a lot of requests, and those of you that followed me a few years back when I went down and taught Carrie Underwood and her friends and family how to preserve, she shared with me she's a vegetarian, and I was like, meat alternatives. Okay, I'm on it. So I had a lot of fun putting that chapter together. She inspired me to step out of my comfort zone and find ways in which to create yummy meals without meat. So there's tofu, soy-based plant meat, and jackfruit recipes in my book, Meals in a Jar. So I'm excited you're loving the recipes, but I know with that comes some questions. And so I've kind of went through my private Facebook group and some of the questions I've been getting on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I kind of put them together tonight to answer them for everybody. And then, of course, I want your questions in the comments. So the biggest question I get, and it's so funny, I cataloged everything, and I put this one up at the top because it seems to be a theme. And the question is, how do I make sure my meal in a jar doesn't turn mushy or get overcooked, especially if I'm canning potatoes, beans, or vegetables along with meat? And that's a really good question. There's been times I've had individuals say, okay, I made this particular recipe, and why are my vegetables mushy? Well, it's not so much that they're mushy, it's they're cooked, right? So unfortunately, you're not going to have a crunch like you would a pickle when you're pressure canning a meal in a jar. Now, it's going to be similar to that as if you cooked it on a stovetop. There's ways to avoid it getting overly cooked or mushy, as some were sharing. It's because if you overcook it in the stock pot, like you're trying to prepare a meal, sometimes that's a habit we have to break. We'll overcook. And then you put it in the jar, and then it goes 240 plus degrees in a pressure canner. And you're like, man, this just seemed to, it lost that integrity I liked. So you'll notice, not only in this book, but on my website at canningdiva.com, I have what's called raw stacking recipes. So, for instance, this is meat and vegetable medleys. So I give you 4 or 5 different recipes that you can raw stack. And what that means is you're literally layering the food in the jar raw. You're typically covering it with a liquid, usually a broth or a stock, and then you're pressure canning it. And that does help retain some of the food's integrity. Other times you'll notice in the recipe, it says bring to a boil and allow it to boil for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. If we're cooking it for the table, right, we're going to let it go a lot longer because we want to blend and mold those flavors together. But when you're pressure canning it, you're just bringing it to temp. You're allowing it to boil to quickly blend those flavors together, kind of help everything meld together. And then you're putting it in a jar. And in doing so, the remainder of the cooking time takes place in the pressure canner. With me, and I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I've ate so much of my meals in a jar. I have a lot of canning to do. And the beautiful part is I knew I'd be moving to Florida, where I'm just now getting into canning season, which is so bizarre to me because typically my season would be ending around October, and I've already got seeds going. I'm going to be starting growing. So it's going to be a lot of fun for me. But this chicken a la cane recipe, it's very, very similar to chicken pot pie filling. If you notice in both of those recipes, we're just bringing it to temp. The only thing we're pre-cooking is the chicken. To avoid your meat getting tough, I always will encourage you to use dark and white meat, okay? And then processing it in the pressure canner is how we're able to keep the peas. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm going to try really hard. There you go. See how the peas are still intact? It's because I didn't allow everything to overboil on the stove top. So when it processed, it finished cooking. Then when I go to use this, I open the lid, I place it into a saucepan, depending on what it is you're making. In this case, I'm going to probably just add a tad bit of soy, maybe a little thickener, and then I'm going to prepare some rice on the side. And boom, I have a meal, and I'm not going to overcook that on the stovetop either, because in doing so, it'll get mushy. So, oh, I didn't bring my dry packed potatoes out here. I can go get them. That is why dry packed potatoes have become so popular. It's because we are not using water to encase them in the jar. So when we allow the hotter air temperature within the jar to do the cooking, when we open that jar and put it into a fry pan, it retains its shape, it doesn't get mushy, and then we can have beautifully fried potatoes. I should have grabbed that jar. I will get it. Let's see here. I'll move this one out of the way. With that comes the next question, and I get this one a lot too. If my recipe says use chicken, can I swap that meat out? Or I think it was recently someone had asked about my drunken pork stew recipe, and her husband does not like pork. And so her question was, will I ruin the recipe if I swap out the pork for something else? And the answer is no. You're not going to ruin it. Meat, for the most part, is within that similar pH range. And believe it or not, it does have some acidity to it. It's not high enough in acid to render it, a high acid food. But for instance, the drunken pork stew, sorry. I had her use her choice. Like, what does her husband like? She can swap out the ratio of pork with either chicken or beef, and she's still going to have a delicious meal in a jar. Now, that recipe is on my website at canningdiva.com. So if you have not made that one is truly one of my favorites. Another example and question that I got was, if I make a meal in a jar recipe, but I want to reduce the salt, is it still safe? Of course, it's still safe. So going back to what I put together for you in Meals in a Jar, Chapter 3 is all about safe ingredient substitutions and means in which to customize your Meals in a Jar recipes safely. Salt is something I get into quite a bit, as well as a variety of oils, fats, herbs, and different vegetables, because not everybody eats the same, right? So salt is primarily used as a flavor enhancer. And if you have to watch the salt in your diet, I give you other salt alternatives that have less sodium, like coconut aminos. You can omit the salt altogether. It is not used for preservation, it is used as a flavor enhancer when we're talking about low acid recipes. Where salt is so crucial, it is primarily pickling. We don't want to mess that brine ratio up. We don't want to dilute it. We don't want to play with the salt when we're pickling. But when we have our meals in a jar that are going in the pressure canner, omit the salt. If you have to watch your sodium content, you don't have to use any salt in your recipes. All right, I'm getting some questions in. Oh, your favorites. All right, Dolores, Supa Toscana. Oh, good call. One of my favorite. Oh, you're making me hungry. Beef barbacoa. Yum. That is also one of my favorites. Taco soup. Yes, that is so good. I have, what did I call it? Enchilada soup in Canning Full Circle. That is my son's favorite. Excuse me, losing my voice here. That is my son's favorite. If he starts to become under the weather, or he's, fighting off something, he loves my chicken soup, but he always asks me for that. I've called it like enchilada or chicken tortilla soup. I've called it a variety of different names because that's the flavor that it embodies. It's the same thing as like a taco soup. But I use the bird beak peppers in mine, and it just gives it, I don't know, something different instead of cayenne or some other dried pepper like an Anaheim. But yes, those are all delicious, Dolores. Those are truly some of my favorites. Let me see here. Let me see if I can see. I'm still learning the software. There it is. There's her comment. Yes, beef barbacoa, taco soup. Oh, making me hungry. I need to eat dinner before I do the Facebook Lives. But oh, hopefully I did this right. Okay, good. All right. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. You're also going to find that for those of you who don't eat meat, but you maybe want some different recipes that are either on my website or in my book, that drunken pork stew, you don't have to add the pork. Now, I'm not going to be able to recreate that recipe to try and determine what the pH is and retest it to tell you if the processing time goes down, because it's primarily now a tomato-based stew with vegetables. So I would encourage you to still process it at the same time as if it did have meat in it. But you can still enjoy that amazing soup without the pork. So keep that in mind. Okay. Some of the other questions I've been getting is what counts as a complete meal in a jar? Honestly, that depends on you. There's times where I consider like my spaghetti sauce a complete meal in a jar. Yes, I have to make the noodles, right? If I'm going to make pasta. But to me, that's a meal in a jar because I didn't have to make the sauce from scratch, which in my home, if I am doing so, that's like a half a day affair, right? I put a lot of time into my sauce, and I put the same amount of time into my sauce prior to pressure canning because tomatoes are the one resilient vegetable that I don't have to worry about the excessive amount of heat. Okay. Another option that I brought with me to help answer this question, I consider my fried green tomato slices as a meal in a jar. Now, this doesn't get pressure canned. This is truly one of my daughter and I's favorites. So, especially in the winter when it would get a little cool, we would drain those, pat them with a paper towel, and then run them through our egg flour, sometimes panko chips, and we would fry those up, and that would be our meal. And that was more than satisfying. So, a meal in a jar doesn't have to be, the meat, the vegetable, a starch, or a certain ratio of things. It could be a soup or a stew. It could be a sauce. It could be something fun like the fried green tomatoes. Or I've done this before. I have fried these up. I have opened a jar of my collard greens. I don't know if you guys have made that recipe yet. So yummy. You use real ham hocks. That is on my website at canningdiva.com. And I have put that in a saucepan, heated that through while we're frying these bad boys up. And that has been a complete meal. So it truly is relative to how you eat, what your family loves. Another one that I constitute as a meal in a jar would be my Asian chicken thighs. I don't know about you. This one was a big hit. I actually had a lot of individuals, God love you all, making YouTube videos and showing how to preserve it and loving it. It's one of our favorites in the home. And that one was in the Complete Guide to Pressure Canning. But the Asian chicken thighs, even though the vegetable isn't in there, it's just the sauce with the chicken thighs. That's okay because while that's heating up, I'm steaming broccoli, I'm making rice, and I have a complete meal. So to me, this meal in a jar is adequate because it's typically the longest part of the meal. The longest time consuming part of the meal is all done for me. So I constitute that as a meal in a jar. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. So I'm not trying to be cheeky to hopefully I'm answering your question because honestly, it's relative to how you eat and what you love. All right. Hopefully I'm answering that question. Now, this is a good canning question. What should I do if my meal in a jar recipe didn't seal after processing? Awesome question. It happens to all of us. You guys heard me, in my Facebook post a few weeks back. It's like, oh, I tried to get my pet-friendly broth in a jar so I didn't have to worry about it. I could use it later for my dogs. And I had, out of 5 jars, 1 seal. If that happens to your meals in a jar, you have some options, okay? You can reprocess depending on what it is. Now, if your lid doesn't seal and you just have 1, I encourage you to put that one in the refrigerator and eat it within a week, just as you would treat a leftover. However, how many of us have, the painstaking, you've set aside a whole Saturday, you've worked your tail off, you're probably doing maybe a triple batch of something and a lid doesn't seal. I eat it that night because I'm tired. I have a kitchen to clean. I'm pooped. I've been on my legs all day. I don't want to cook something else. So sometimes I get really excited when a jar doesn't seal because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to eat that. Right. Or I'll even do that if I'm getting ready to fill like the last 2 jars and I'm like, do I really need 12? I'm going to eat that. So sometimes I'll cook it a little longer on the stovetop and that becomes my meal. But if, for instance, this is one of the questions I'm kind of putting together in this answer. One of the things I noticed with spaghetti sauce or any sauce, typically red based for whatever reason, when we're using a digital canner, what I have found is when we stick with the traditional headspace of just 1 inch and we're using a digital canner, it's not enough for our spaghetti sauces or our red sauces, okay? Whether it's a vodka sauce, a garden sauce, a spaghetti sauce, I have found that giving it a good generous inch, generous inch, which is about 1.25 inches, up to 2 inches is helpful because the digital pressure canners are maintaining the temperature so well, whereas the stovetop can fluctuate a tad. It helped my lids seal. And that's why this isn't siphoning. This is actual headspace. Now, obviously, I only did it down to about here. What's going to happen is I've lost some of the, what do you call it? I didn't lose it. I displaced some of the solids up top because what does that show us? That shows us that while it's getting hot, things are moving, they're active, they're getting up there to that jar rim. So if we can give it the space we need for those molecules to move around, it's less likely to get underneath the lid, preventing it from sealing. But if this didn't seal, you have that option of getting a whole new lid, wiping that jar rim down again, and reprocessing. If it's something like the chicken a la cane, however, I would not want to process some of these delicate vegetables. Again, the chicken's going to be fine, but everything else in there, to reprocess that again for 90 minutes, that's where things get mushy. And so I would put this in the refrigerator and eat it within a week, just as I would a leftover. So I hope that helps answer your question. I should have jotted all your names down. Sorry, I didn't do that. Okay, any questions from any of you that have tuned in? The only disadvantage I have with this software is I can't typically see who's here. So I rely on the questions and the comments and the emojis. So by all means, drop your questions in here because I want to make sure I'm answering what's been burning on your mind. Okay. All right. Let me see here. All right. So this question I got literally just asked again last night. So I thought perfect timing. How long can I safely store a meal in a jar, assuming that I followed the directions correctly and it achieved a proper seal? I do get asked this a lot. Sadly, there's this misconception that if you don't eat your home canned goods within a year, then you have to throw them all out. And then everyone's like, well, what's the point of doing this then? What unfortunately doesn't happen is it doesn't get explained in the proper context as to why they say, that first year is vital. That comes down to nutritional value. So your optimal nutritional value is within that first year of storage. After that, it's still good to eat. It's still safe. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just over time, like anything that is, well, been exposed to heat and has some liquidity, it does start to break down nutritionally. So, what I tell people is 3 to 5 years for your home canned goods. Okay. But if you're not eating it, don't can it, you know? Um, Here's also how I put it. So, like for those of you who attended Prepper Camp, you're the most recent live group of people that I was able to be on stage and answer your questions. And this did come up quite a bit. And how I always explain it is I know that my food is optimal within that first year of storage, right? But all right, so it starts degrading a little bit over time. Within that 3rd to 5th year, we're still above 50% nutritional value. I'm okay with that. Granted, most of my home canned goods don't last that long because we eat them. However, if we can also eat ho-hos, ding-dongs, and Doritos that really don't have much nutritional value, think about the crap that we eat. If we can eat that and it's really not doing much for us, I'm completely okay with these Asian chicken thighs being in my pantry for 3 years, knowing I might have lost, I don't know, I'm at 60% nutritional value. I'm okay with that. So I tell individuals 3 to 5 years. But I also tell individuals if you're starting to see a pattern and things aren't moving on your shelves, it means you're not eating it or you're not interested in eating it. And we've all been there. I did it myself. I got so excited with a new recipe, made a whole bunch of it. I used the example in my first independently published book, Canning Full Circle, when it first came out back in 2017. I thought that if I flavored my son's applesauce with blueberries, because he was all into blueberries and he was into blue. I don't know if you guys remember that cartoon. It really wasn't a cartoon. How do I explain it? What was it called? Blue's Clues. And I thought, how cool. This recipe sounds amazing. It's simple, it's healthy, so I'm not doing store-bought stuff with preservatives. So I went hog wild. And I was so excited to give it to him, right? Applesauce isn't supposed to be boo, mama. He hated it. So now I have all these jars. I'm like, what am I going to do? I got creative. I made a lot of muffins. He had a lot of muffins. But that's my point. So if you're seeing a pattern or you get really excited too fast, maybe don't can that or can a half a batch. This was leading into my next question that I get often. I'm alone. I live alone. I don't eat a lot. I want to try this recipe. I'm not sure if I'm going to like this recipe. I get a lot of preface to the question, can I half batch this recipe of yours? Can I make this meal in a jar, but can I cut the ingredients in half? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Try a test batch, do a half, cut everything in half directly, and make sure you like it before you dive full in. Okay. Oh, hi, Anita. Oh, from Alberta, Canada. Welcome. All right. You recently received a pressure canner for your birthday. So you're getting all the info, processes, possibilities. I love that. I love it. That's how it starts. And you're doing the right things. You're seeking knowledge, you're gaining insight, and hopefully you're getting access to some really yummy recipes. All right. So half batching, yes, that was a lead into a very common question I get. Okay, next one. Where did I leave off? When making meals in a jar from your book, what are some of the most common mistakes you're making during batch canning days? Okay, I think I understand this question, and I should have wrote your name down. I'm so sorry. If I'm not answering you in its entirety or I've missed the mark, by all means, shoot me a DM, email me. You can even use my contact me page on my website at canningdiva.com. I hope I'm answering this right for you. Batch canning. So you've already heard me say triple a batch or double a batch. That is easy and awesome to do. There are certain recipes, however, and I think this is where you're coming from because it was asked to me based on my homestyle baked beans recipe. Let me see if I can show that to some of you. Give me just a second. Should have had it up and ready. All right, so let me share my screen here. Give me just a second. All right, let's see. Share my screen. Dun, 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 dun. I want to share this one. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this. So in relating to your question regarding batch canning, for those of you who really want to keep the flavor integrity or the intended flavor of the recipe, sometimes batch canning can be an Achilles heel. All right. So you're going to notice if you go to my website at canningdiva.com and you look at homestyle baked beans canning recipe, I get into the ingredients and then I do share why not to double, triple this. Okay. The way it was created was specifically meant, I'm going to show you this, for this flavor profile to be robust and so that it doesn't get diluted if you try to double or triple it. Okay. Notice also I do have some brown sugar in here, some blackstrap molasses, ketchup, Dijon mustard, Worcestershire sauce. This was my Grandma Steele's baked bean recipe. Okay. And I found a way to get it into a jar safely so that we can have it on the ready because it did take quite a bit of time to make back in the day. And as you can see there, that recipe tip, oh, did I share this? I might not have. Sorry, I'm just a yik yakking away. And you didn't get to see it. Sorry, let's go back. I'm still learning this software. Okay, so there's the, we'll just go right back. Okay, homestyle baked beans. I talk about it. I share with you why, how, and obviously the nutritional benefits, but primarily within these ingredients, because of what I've added, I encourage you to just make a single batch or make 2 single batches at the same time. So in essence, you're doubling the recipe, but not everything's going in the same stock pot. And you'll see that I talk about this throughout the recipe. Okay, I got to remember to hit that button so that you guys can see what I'm seeing. Sorry about that. Okay, so I hope I've answered your question. I hope because I took it from that post on Facebook that I'm catching what you're throwing. If I've missed it, please reach out to me. But not everything winds up with the intended flavor profile when we double, triple, quadruple a recipe. Now, thankfully, it's not everything. Most recipes, okay, you can easily double, triple, quadruple. It depends on how much space you have and you know how big your stock pot is and maybe even your canner. But there are going to be some instances where I'm going to encourage you not to. Now, it's your home, your rules, your kitchen. You want to triple it because you're into the time saving aspect, knock yourself out. I'm not going to tell you not to. Just know that some things then might taste a bit diluted and not have that punch and that power, you know, intended from the flavor profile had you just made a single batch or 2 single batches at the same time. Okay. Thankfully, it's rare, but you will find that. So hopefully I've answered your question. All right. Now, this is another one. I hope I'm going to answer it because I've understood what you're asking, but the question is, can I adapt a family recipe or a freezer meal that you've previously frozen, I'm assuming, into a shelf-stable meal in a jar? That's a really good question. And a lot of times what I tell people, and this is what I did in this case, I do it often. I'll get like an image of a recipe card, or I will get a screenshot of a recipe from somewhere online, and I'll get asked, can I put this in a jar? I thank you for doing that because I need to see the list of ingredients in their entirety, right? I need to see the ratio of things. Sometimes I can't answer you without making it and testing it myself. Other times it is extremely similar to a recipe that's already been established and pressure canned, and we can mirror that profile. So the answer that I have to give is it's truly specific on the actual recipe itself. Now, a lot of individuals, a lot of home canners across the world will simply take that recipe, and depending on what those ingredients are, they will process it for the longest time and temp based on the lowest pH ingredient, meaning low acidity. Higher the number, lower the acid. Okay. So let me explain that for a second. So some individuals will say, okay, I'm going to make chicken a la cane, but my mom made it this way, XYZ. And so I know that it has chicken in it. I know it has something else, right? Maybe not in line with how I make mine. And so because they know that there's meat in it, they will process at the full time and temperature, which is 90 minutes for quarts and 75 minutes for pints at 10 psi or according to their specific elevation. And they have had great success. So if you have a specific recipe, some family heirloom, or just something you created and jotted down that you'd like me to take a look at, I always encourage you to email me at diane@canningdiva.com. Email me in its entirety, and please give me some grace because there's going to be times where I might not be able to give you an answer without creating it and testing it myself, but I'll at least be willing to take a look at it. So keep that in mind. All right, last question I get, and please, I want your questions. So if you have any, type them into the comments because I want to make sure that we are getting your questions answered. Anita, if you have any questions, especially if you're new and starting out, no question is a bad question. There's no dumb questions, right? You're learning. So it's a new area to explore, and I'm happy to help. All right. Last one. How should I reheat a meal in a jar for the best flavor and texture once it's opened? And, oh, Hazel, what are you doing? My dog, sorry. What are you doing? Nope, go. It depends on the recipe. So, all right, here's a prime example because we're going to talk about two recipes that I've been having a lot of fun with, that I have ate already, that I will be canning more of, and of course sharing videos with you when I am making them. I know we've got Thanksgiving coming up, so it'll more than likely be after Thanksgiving. I'd like to say that I'm going to create this next week, and then I look at my schedule and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to try. But it all depends on the recipe. So, for instance, bangers and mash. That is in Meals in a Jar. One of my favorites. I've ate it all. I ate my last jar. What was it? It was like 2 weeks after I moved in. I was sweaty because it was hot. It was July. I was tired. I did not feel like cooking. I did get the kitchen all put away, and I was like, I am not messing anything up. So I made it quick and easy. In that case, I literally just put it into a deep skillet. I heat it through, Now, bangers and mash, typically you're going to have mashed potatoes. Obviously, they are quartered in the jar for pressure canning. But there's no wrong way. You just want to heat everything through. And in my case, and I've done this before. I think I did a video with you guys. I was so hungry, I didn't bother to mash those potatoes. I literally just cut and ate them. So there's no wrong way. One thing I did notice when I went to eat, I have 2 stuffed cabbage recipes in this book. One is the traditional, the German way that my family, we grew up eating on the regular. And then another is a Turkish stuffed cabbage leaves. Ooh, I just saw Zuppa Toscana, Dolores. And one thing I did notice to answer this question, I should have flagged this. Why did I not flag the page? I'm really getting myself hungry. Is certain things like stuffed cabbages or rouladen. Rouladen, for those of you who've made rouladen and love it on the stove or oven, you can put that in a jar. I don't know if you knew that. Speaking of, there's the German rouladen. Yum. That comes out of the jar. The rouladen comes out of the jar very easy because that meat stays intact. However, if you're going to do savory, right, beef cabbage rolls, this is one of my mom's recipes. I found that after pressure canning it, getting it out of the jar, you use a wide mouth jar, obviously. What I did wrong initially is I was like, oh, let me just stick my hand in here and pull it out. Well, I ripped it in half. Okay. So sometimes the easiest way for texture was one side of your question is to just dump it out. Same with the bangers and mash. Dump it out. Don't get a fork in there. Don't get your hand in there. Let it slide out and then arrange it. You can bake it or you can heat it up with the bangers and mash in a skillet, but the other I would bake through just to heat it through. And it seems to keep the integrity better. Now, soups and stews, for instance, like this is my asparagus soup, still one of my favorites. I have so much of it. I used to make it for my mom all the time. I made it in pint-sized jars for her. And I don't know if you can see it, but this is pureed. And look at how everyone freaks out when you see the word puree. But look at the liquidity, okay? It's not like a pureed solid mass. All right. The word pureed gets misused and is misunderstood. There's enough liquidity in here that the thermal heat transfer is so optimal. We don't have to do 90 minutes for soup. Something like this is easy, right? Soups and stews, you just dump them in. My biggest thing, which is going to contradict what a lot of you have maybe always done or the advice you typically give. There's this misconception that everything has to be boiled for 10 minutes or longer. And depending on what it is, you could actually ruin the recipe. So the question was, if I'm reheating a meal in a jar, how do I do it for best flavor and best texture? You don't have to go overboard. You are going to treat your home canned goods just as you would if you're getting ready to heat and serve anything. Okay. Obviously, I would not put a jar in the microwave. Don't do that, please. Make sure it's on the stovetop or in your oven. Another example that I wanted to bring up tonight was like my buffalo chicken. I know that one's on my website here. That'll be easier than trying to hold up the book. Let's share this again and share it properly, Diane. Sorry, I'm still learning this software. What am I looking at? We're going to go meals in a jar. I will share it this time, I promise. But the buffalo chicken dinner is super yummy. So the reason I'm bringing this one up, or even the pulled Mexican chicken, that's another good example. That's also on my website. Here, actually, I think I can click through this. Yeah. Okay, so I can click through this while perfect. So there's pulled Mexican chicken. Oh, jambalaya. That's a really good meal in a jar. That recipe's so yummy. That's another one of my favorites. Between that one and beef barbacoa, oh, love it. Okay, so what was I going to show you? Where is it? There it is. Buffalo chicken dinner. Um, so reheating that, okay? Keeping the texture going so that it's still enjoyable, whether you're making a meal with it, whether you're making an appetizer with it. Everything is fully cooked. I hate using like store brand names, but I don't know if you've ever like purchased like pre-made smoked pork, barbecue pork, or buffalo chicken, and it comes to you refrigerated, and then it gives you instructions on how to heat that through. It's pretty much the same with your home canned goods. Okay. Your heating time is a little bit less because you don't have to bring something that was refrigerated back to temp to then turn around and bake or cook. So we do get a little bit of an advantage and it doesn't have to go as long. But typically in most of my recipes, I hope you guys are seeing this, I share with you how to use it in the very beginning of the recipe. And then I give the actual recipe so that you can pin it. And then I'm usually giving tips and ideas on how to cook with it. All right. Now, let's say, let me see here. I don't know if I can give you another example. Oh, sorry, you guys. I'm so hungry going through this with you. Irish jig in a jar. Who's made that one? Oh, love that one. This is a good example of raw stacking. Okay. Everything's going in raw. Even that corned beef is going in raw. But we're relying on the time and temperature during processing to do all the cooking, right? So the cool thing with that is you are cooking it in a jar. It's now being, pantry ready, shelf stable. Then you're going to go ahead and heat that one through. I speak a lot about how to reuse that to keep the texture. But now let's say you open 2 quarts because you thought you had company coming. Look at how beautiful that is. And you didn't eat enough. You didn't finish it, right? There was some leftovers. There is nothing wrong with taking your home canned meal in a jar, placing that into your glass storage container, refrigerating that, and treating it like a leftover, eating it within a week. Go right ahead. Now, regarding the frozen stuff, that's a little trickier. I get asked all the time, can I take my frozen tomatoes that I've collected from my garden, I've been storing in the freezer, and use them to make sauce? Yeah. Same with your frozen meat, any frozen vegetable. Unfortunately, I don't know how many of you have seen, and I'm going to do a whole podcast on this. So this is probably going to incite a lot more questions. Fine, let's have them because I'm going to be talking extensively about this. I guess we can call it a bulletin. You guys see these kind of floating around the internet? Canning previously frozen tomatoes. It's okay in some cases and not in others. Oy vey. We're going to address that in far more detail when in my podcast, Canning with the Diva. I'll share science and math and some common sense. Of course you can. Now, if you have freezer-made meals, okay, some of us, we've purchased those silicone freezer bags and we have found some really cool recipes online that we turn around and we place into the bags. And then we're going to eventually take that out and put it into a slow cooker. I've been asked because they're not getting eaten fast enough, right? Some of those types of recipes only have a shelf life of like 3 to 6 months. And so you're getting close to that 3rd month in freezer storage and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't waste this food, but I'm not going to be able to eat it. Can I put it in a jar? Honestly, it comes down to what the recipe is, but I don't see why not, unless of course there's certain things in there that are not going to soften when exposed to heat because they've already been exposed to an acid. So an example of that would be a recipe that has a lot of acidity, like tomatoes. Okay. If you have dried beans in there, unfortunately, dried beans don't like acid and they are going to have a harder time softening up even when exposed to 240 degrees. So if you run across that, let me know what the recipe ingredients are, and I can give you as much guidance as possible. Otherwise, my advice would be slow cook it, create it, refreeze it one more time. Just know that you're going to have some dilution of flavor and possibly more liquidity than what you anticipated. So you might have to doctor it up, but I would not let that go longer than a month in the freezer. Freezing is an excellent food preservation method. It's just limited and it degrades. It doesn't last as long, and we start to, unfortunately, due to those ice crystals, they ruin the integrity of the food over time if not properly stored. And then we usually dilute the flavor because why? When it thaws, we have what? More liquidity, more water. Okay. Ooh, all right. I got a question here. When making here, let me see if I can get it on here. Oh, now I made it so small I can't read it. Hang on. When making the rouladen, do you leave the toothpicks in while canning? I make this every Christmas Eve and I would love to can and have it ready to cut down on kitchen time. However, the toothpicks are always a problem, even when I've warned everyone, yes, that there's a toothpick in there. I know. I've bitten them before myself. Okay, excellent question. Here's what I do. And unfortunately, the hardest part with printed books is every recipe has X amount of space to fit on a page or a spread. And I could give tip after tip after tip, and my editor is like, Diane, we're running out of room. So have you seen the cocktail toothpicks? They're a little shorter and flatter. I have used those. And what I have found, typically because the rouladen is it's decent in size, when you insert it through, it seems to not stick out as much. And it seems to almost be the circumference. Now, that works for the canning. I know it doesn't work necessarily for the eating part, but I do leave the toothpicks in. It does not harm anything. It is totally, food grade. We're not putting anything harmful in there. It doesn't break down either when exposed to the heat, liquidity, and fats, from fat or oil from the meat. So yes, I leave them in because if we don't, when we go to reach into the jar and pull one out, unfortunately, it may unravel. Now, I've still had a few of mine unravel. Even with the regular toothpicks in, I have broken them too, just to kind of give myself some space when filling the jar. But you can easily re-roll that and even use a new toothpick if you need to, because your whole goal now is to just heat them through, right? Get them all in a line in your baking pan. One of the tips I give, and I don't have an empty jar, so pretend this is empty. When you're filling your jars with things like the stuffed cabbage rolls, the rouladen, laying the wide mouth jar on its side and nesting another one, the chili rellenos. Make sure you lay the jar on its side, and you want to then stack it on its side. It helps you so much more than trying to vertically hold everything together, keep it intact, and stick it down. So when you're packing the rouladen, keep your jar empty on its side. They'll lay nicely on top of one another. Then when you go to put your sauce in, you can place your funnel on top, pour the sauce in, use your headspace measuring tool to make sure sauce gets all around the rouladen or the cabbage rolls, and voila. Obviously, then you wipe your rim, do all your steps. But excellent question. And yes, Dolores, that should save you quite a bit of time. I will say this, it's not so much a question I get, it's sometimes more a comment. Like, Diane, wow, I love this. The flavor is great, but it didn't look so pretty. Well, that is sometimes the trade-off, right? So if we are making a meal to present, we are going to have to give a little bit of time after getting it out of a jar to doctor it up, as I call it. No different than, for instance, the buffalo chicken dinner, right? If I want to make that into an appetizer and add the cream cheese, I have to put some TLC into that to not only create it, but to reblend it, to heat it through, and then present it. So my advice to you would get a couple jars under your belt, do a half batch maybe, or just do enough. I don't know what type of pressure canner you have. Some of the digital canners will only fit, 4, maybe 5 quart jars. So maybe start there, get a feel for how it, looks and holds up. And, from there, then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this different. I'm going to change or break the toothpick. Sometimes I just leave that in to hold. Or I've purchased those appetizer ones that seem to be just about the right length. And that has worked for me. And then, yep, sorry, someone's gonna someone's gonna find a toothpick in their roulade. It's just, I think it's just par for the course. Good question, though. I'm excited for you to make that. That has been a family treasure of ours. My aunt, who's down here, she and my mom, would make those. And then my other aunt, my cousin's tuning in. Her mom, she would do the stuffed cabbage rolls, and it's kind of fun. We all have like our own little spin, you know. Sometimes it's the pickle choice, or my son hated mustard, so for a while couldn't put the mustard on his roulade. So it just, it's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of nostalgia for me too, because these are recipes that I love and eat, and I'm happy to share them with you. Any other questions, you guys? I can't believe we're already through a whole hour. Oh, um, any questions before we go? Obviously, this will record and will air on my Facebook page. Those of you tuning in from Instagram, I'm kind of new to adding you to the platform, so bear with me. If the video doesn't stay active on Instagram Live, just know that eventually I'll also be adding YouTube, so we can all pile over there too to watch it. And I'll keep these recorded and playable. So by all means, even if you didn't tune into the live, if you have questions, go ahead and still type them in the comments. I'm going to answer you. All right. But I thank you all for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful evening and weekend coming up. The only night I won't be doing a Facebook Live this month will be obviously Thanksgiving, but we will be tuning back in next week. Next week, we're going to switch it up a bit. I've been asked in the past, those of you who tuned in and loved watching me go through my bug out bag, we're going to go through the bug in bag I have in my truck. So I will not be sitting at my desk. I will be in the kitchen, so I have a big open area. I'm going to show you what I keep with me in my vehicle at all times, so that if, God forbid, something does happen, I have what I need to make it through, so that way, or I'm helping somebody else, right? What if there's an accident? Okay. Bugging in, staying in, these are all topics we love to discuss. I talk about a lot of survival techniques. My background is in disaster management. That's kind of how I launched the whole Canning Diva. But I'd love for you to tune in, and I would love to know what you are doing, whether it's in your vehicle or in your bug out bag in your home, so that we're kind of all learning from each other. I'm always learning something new, you guys. I am not all knowing. And if there's anything you can learn from me, I am happy. And I would love to learn from you too. So next week, tune in Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about that bug in truck bag. All right, you guys, thank you so much. As always, happy canning and preserving, and have a blessed night.